Aries rules instinct, the ancient animal wisdom of the body. Society has trained people to freeze, to obey, to appease. And Saturn in Aries will break this spell. This transit will reveal where we have abandoned our bodies, where we lost touch with self-protection, where we silenced warning signs, where we live in a false sense of safety. Pisces was the underworld, where we drowned, merged, dissolved, and surrendered. Aries is the rebirth, breath returning to our lungs, heart pounding, the senses awakening, the fire rising. You come out of the water alive, gasping, awakened and trembling, but ready. This transit is here to make you real, make you fierce, make you sovereign, make you you. You. Who are you? Because if you don't claim your fire, life will force you into situations that will require it. Who are you beneath all the programming? This is what we are going to find out. Your physical body becomes the center of your awareness. Energy level rises. Movement becomes necessary. Fire needs release. Strength training, impact exercise, martial arts, all may become extremely beneficial during this time. The body wants to fight, to run, to leap, to push, to lift, to survive. But this increased energy has a shadow. Accidents, impulsive violence, physical confrontation, reckless behavior and decisions, acting before thinking. And at a global level, this could look unfortunately like an escalation of war, conflict, and aggressive political action. Not because Saturn causes war, but because collective fire becomes unrestrained before it is mastered. For those who lost their voices during Pisces, Saturn in Aries forces its return, by confrontation if needed, by crisis if necessary, by survival instinct if nothing else works. Many who were passive, compliant, or afraid will suddenly feel something ancient and powerful rise from inside of them. This is the fire of selfhood returning. And for others who already live through instinct, aggression, and ego, Saturn will confront them with the consequences of their fire. Broken relationships, burned bridges, danger, injury, isolation. No matter what, both sides will learn mastery. Ultimately, Saturn in Aries teaches us how to take space without bulldozing, how to act with intention rather than impulse, how to channel fear into courage, how to fight only when necessary, how to define identity without overcompensating, how to lead without burning the world. As Saturn sharpens the individual self, the intuitive, spiritual thread that connected people during Saturn in Pisces dissolves. Communication becomes more self-centered, rushed, and blunt. People may be perceived during this time as insensitive, aggressive, impatient, or unempathetic, not out of malice, but because the inner compass points entirely to self, not to us. Libra, the opposite sign, becomes the tension sign during this time. Cooperation, fairness, and relational balance will require conscious effort. Misunderstandings will be common, and many will have to relearn how to communicate without the Piscean telepathy. So Saturn in Aries does not suppress the flame, it releases it. It gives raw fire back to the individual so that it can be mastered, directed, and embodied with intention rather than chaos. After years of Piscean numbness, surrender, and dissolution, Saturn in Aries may feel like waking up at the edge of a skyscraper, heart pounding, fully aware of your body, the danger, and the need to act. Expect sudden bursts of energy, impulsive reactions, emotional eruptions that flare up and burn out quickly. Panic attacks, physical restlessness, your survival instinct waking up, a sharp return to self-awareness, initiative, courage, and urgency. This is the separation of the individual from the collective consciousness, the spiritual rebirth after the watery dissolution of Pisces. As Pisces collective merging dissolves, Aries rebuild the individual. Expect spiritual awakenings, sudden truths about who you are, raw emotions resurfacing, suppressed anger releasing, independence becoming non-negotiable, relationships ending where identity cannot exist, new desires emerging. People who were sleepers will awaken. People who were avoidant will act. People who had no identity will form one. And people who were too identified will be humbled. Saturn always expresses itself through the sign it enters. And wherever there is excess, Saturn becomes the force that presses, restricts, and sharpens. Its objective? The teacher's mastery. This is why the beginnings of Saturn transits often feels like losing control, like being thrown into a wild horse without a saddle. And suddenly, the horse is the one riding you. This is Saturn classic signature. The shock that forces immediate awareness, discipline, and responsibility. Saturn enters a placement and starts bombing the city. Not out of malice, but to show us where the defenses were never real to begin with. It awakens our survival instinct. It forces action. It strips away illusion by confronting us with the physical consequences of our behaviors, our avoidance, our blind spots. Saturn entering Aries is not subtle. It is the sound of a cosmic blade being sharpened, a torch being lit in a pitch black room, a wildfire demanding form, direction, and mastery. And for the next 3 years, we are stepping into a realm where raw instincts meet sacred responsibility, where every impulse, every desire, every spark of anger or courage becomes a teacher, a mirror, a command. This is not the type of astrology that comforts you. This is the kind that changes you. And when Saturn crosses the threshold into Aries, we all meet a part of ourselves we've been avoiding. The part that acts without thinking, speaks before understanding, wants before choosing. The part that carries both the wound and the weapon. The part that could lead a revolution or burn down a kingdom, depending on one single moment of awareness. So over the next 3 years, the universe is asking you to master the flame. Not suppress it, not fear it, not tame it into something polite and socially acceptable, but discipline it into purpose. Shape it into strength. Wield it into precision. This is where courage becomes strategy, where identity becomes responsibility, and where the lone wolf becomes the teacher or collapses under the weight of its own impulses. Because whether you are ready or not, the next chapter begins with a spark. And Saturn will make sure that you learn how to carry it. Saturn in Pisces dissolved boundaries. Emotional, spiritual, psychological. Pisces rules the collective unconscious. Idealistic love, imagination, and invisible realms. And under Saturn here, many felt a deep exhaustion, a spiritual surrender, or a sense of being overpowered by forces that are larger than the individual. Addiction in particular became a major expression, the overpowering urge to dissolve into something, a substance, a fantasy, a belief, or a relationship. Many felt reality blur. Many lost themselves in sacrifice. Many felt like their will was slipping through their fingers. It was the Jesus on the cross all over again. The surrender of the individual to the needs of the many. Saturn in Pisces removed the boundaries between our bodies and the bodies of others. It merged spirit with spirit, psyche with psyche, and left countless people feeling hijacked by collective emotions. Because of this, many experienced blind beliefs collapsing, a wake-up call around dependency, disappointment in authority, emotional burnout that would manifest through physical health, and the realization of how small we truly are within the greater forces of life. Some reacted by this confusion with doubling down on division, on identity, on ideological separation, an attempt to reform boundaries where they have been dissolved. But beneath that, an invisible truth hums. We are linked by forces that we do not control, forces we barely understand, forces that rule us whether we consent or not. Saturn in Pisces ultimately taught us one important lesson. You cannot control the ocean, but you must learn to navigate it and protect your vessel. Self-love, discipline, and boundaries became sacred work, and the veil between worlds definitely thinned, showing us the undeniable presence of spiritual forces beyond our ego.